You're listening to The Real Estate Ride. Make sure to subscribe and enjoy the show.
Don't live for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, we think that it'll be better tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
These are all things you got to condition your mind to taking a risk. Last analogy. Remember I said it's the thought of taking a risk. Once you take the risk, the fear goes away.
Yep.
Fear will go away. Remember the first time you got into a roller coaster. As a matter of fact, it started when you were in line.
Your heart. Yeah.
Then you get a car and that metal thing clanks down. Feeling claustrophobic.
Then you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Let me out.
Then it starts going up the first hill. With the, when the chain pulls it up. You're about ready to pass out because blood's not getting to your head. But think about it. You're safe. Nothing's happened. You're in the car. The thing's down on you. It's the thought of what is about to happen that's making you afraid.
Yes.
It happens when we involuntarily take the risk because you're locked in there.
Yeah.
We throw our hands in the air. We back and forth. And when the ride's done, 8 out of 10 of us get to the back of the line and do it all over again. It's the same thing with taking a risk, guys. You will be fearful until you take it. And again, about the chapter on regrets, you're going to have them. I regret some of the things I've tried in real estate that didn't work out, but I'll never sit there in my rocking chair at 80 years old regretting that I didn't try.
All right. Hey, everybody. It is The Real Estate Ride with Jay and Annie Adkins.
Hey, welcome to the show. We appreciate it.
And we have a special guest with us today, Mr. Frank McKinney. I don't know if those of you listening have heard of him or not. I'm assuming that you have.
Oh, come on. Nobody's heard me. Let's introduce me to your viewers and listeners.
No, you're good. He has written many best-selling books, and he has done some amazing artwork in real estate, as far as I'm concerned. And we're here to talk all things real estate with him today.
Yes, we are very excited to have you, Frank. We met Frank a number of years ago. He was speaking at an event and raising money for his charity, which we would love to discuss today as well.
Definitely.
Because that's very important to give back in your life and in your business. So I think Frank is a beacon of how that is done.
Yeah, for sure. You have done many villages in third world countries, and we definitely want to touch base and talk about that because Jay and I had the opportunity to invest with you, which was awesome. And we have a goal to do lots of different philanthropy stuff.
Yes.
So we would love to definitely touch base on that, as well as anything else you want to talk about. So it's kind of a free-for-all.
All right. I'm right at you. I do want to thank you guys for donating a couple of years ago, I believe it was now, to our 31st self-sustaining village in Haiti that we've built over the last 22 years.
Yeah.
That village, which is now complete, took a lot longer to build than we thought because of the obvious issues going on in Haiti, but it now has 50 houses, a community center, school, church, clinic, renewable food, clean drinking water, and some form of free enterprise so the village can maintain itself as being self-sustaining. Because it's really, charity exacerbates poverty. It does nothing to solve the problem. It's the phrase we've coined philanthro-capitalism, which is taking the best of philanthropy, which is the heart, getting rid of the worst, which is charity, and then taking the best of capitalism, which is money, getting rid of the worst, which is greed. And marrying the two in a philanthro-capitalistic approach to solving, you'll never solve poverty, but you can certainly mitigate it. And that's what we've done over the last 20 years in Haiti. We've provided, because of people like you, over 14,400, I think it is, 14,400 children with a self-sustaining existence. They were eating mud flavored with bouillon and lemon juice before. So
yeah, that's
Wow.
awesome.
Wow.
Why did you decide to choose Haiti in your efforts? I'm just curious as to.
I'm a simpleton. I'm just a linear thinker. I went to 4 high schools in 4 years. I spent 7 stints in juvenile detention. I had a 1.8 GPA out of high school and no chance of pursuing a formal education with that kind of GPA. So many moons ago, when we were unveiling at the time the most expensive spec house in the history of Palm Beach County, which was a $30 million house. This was back in like 2001 or 2. Somebody had taken the invitation. Imagine receiving an invitation to the grand unveiling of one of my houses. And we build all these houses on spec. And it's a big risk, $30 million house, spec buyer. So we sent out invitations to VIPs, multi-million-dollar real estate brokers, and politicians and that kind of thing. And somebody had taken the invitation and basically mocked it up that says, come see the most expensive spec house in the history of Palm Beach County for the benefit of the least expensive, which we took a little picture of a house in Honduras that this charity was building for $2,000 a house. It's a wooden house. And they asked me, would you allow us to use your mansion, as a backdrop, as a fundraiser for our charity? And I thought that was pretty ingenious. Most expensive on one side for the least expensive spec house in the world on the other side. I said, no, I can't do that. Because what if I sell it and you plan an event and we sell it the next day? I'm not going to hold up the sale, but you can use my house. And you've been to my house. It's a nice house on the ocean. We used our house as the venue for this
Awesome.
I'd just heard of. At the end of the event, we had raised $20,000 and somebody came up to me for this charity, not for Caring House at the time. Somebody came up to me and said, don't you feel good knowing that you just raised $20,000 or enough to build 10 houses, because they were building them for $2,000 back then, in the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So being the linear thinker and the inquisitive one, I said, well, that's nice. Yeah, I guess it's kind of good we did that. But what's the poorest country and why aren't you guys there? And that's the debate. And what I learned that, I said, okay, well, now that I know what it's about, we encouraged that entity, that charity, was called Food for the Poor, to go into Haiti. I kind of watched how they were doing their thing, and I felt I could do it a lot cheaper than they were doing it, with way less overhead. And so we built our first village in Haiti in 2002 was to get our first one. So that was how we took Haiti's, again, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It's only 2 hours from our shores. The infant mortality rate is 22%, meaning if you have a little brother or sister, there's a 22% chance they don't see the age of 5. They work on less than $1 a day. Even the life expectancy over there is 47 years. So I don't know about you, but I would be dead if I lived in Haiti now, older than 47.
Me too.
Yes.
We would be.
Yeah.
So that's the backstory, and it really was born. We'll get into the real estate stuff in a second, but if it wasn't for the real estate exposure for me and the ultimate success that we had, I wouldn't understand. For those of you who are Christian or even know the Bible a little bit, there's a passage that goes, and if you're not into the Bible and you're atheist or agnostic, just think of this as a great life mantra. To whom much is entrusted, much is required. To whom much is given, much is expected. It's from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 48. And really, real estate, the success of real estate allowed me to, again, along the lines of a linear simpleton thinker, if I'm providing housing to the world's most wealthy, which is what I've done for over 30 years on speculation,
Right.
shouldn't I be a responsible steward for the blessings God had given me and be providing housing to those who don't have it, especially in those poor countries like Haiti and Nicaragua and Honduras, other places that we. So that's kind of the backstory as to finding my spiritual highest calling while I was pursuing my professional highest calling, a gift from God that allows you to put money in the bank, food on the table, and cars in the garage. Right. That being real estate for me helped me find my spiritual highest calling, which was building these villages in Haiti.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very important, I think, because you can start doing real estate and you're making money, but if you don't really have a higher purpose or a higher calling, it can get boring. Like you can get burnt out on it, and it's really important when you are getting into real estate or continuing in your real estate career that you are looking for, how can I contribute back and how can I give back? And that brings a higher purpose for what we do and drives us to achieve more and to be better all the time, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Very simple concept. As you're out there and you're watching this, you're new to real estate, you want to be a real estate millionaire, you want to sell a bunch of real estate or buy and hold and have a bunch of doors that you rent out for a lot of money. Having been there, and started, 30 plus years ago. We did our first crack house. So I spent a little backstory because it wasn't all about the mansions. I started flipping crack houses before flip wasn't even a word used outside of gymnastics. I mean, nobody was doing flips, and so we started. My wife and I have been together since 1987, and I did my first flip in 86, but shortly thereafter, she's an interior designer and started working with her. So you do that. What's that? 1987, and that's 37 years.
Yeah.
Depending on when this podcast airs, that we started by buying rundown, beat up old houses in rough parts of town and fixing them up like nobody. Like I over improved my properties. Like nobody, because listen, I wanted to get 103% of retail. And I was willing. This is key. This is a key. You'll hear a few key points, and if you don't remember, I'll just go buy my books. But one of them is sacrifice your bottom line to build your reputation.
Yep.
In other words, build your reputation, and the bottom line will follow. So I sacrificed margins at the beginning so I could build a reputation of one who really did a great job on these crack houses. And let's face it, the people I was selling these houses to back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were renting the American dream.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the American dream was meant to be rented. The American dream is meant to be owned. And as simple as this might sound, I was able to show people who were renting the American dream that they could own the American dream for less than first, last, and security. I don't know if it still holds true today, but I bet it does. If you look at what first is, last is, and security is, you multiply those things, they're basically times 3.
Right.
You can get into an FHA situation. If you're a VA, get into it for no down payment.
Right.
And,
Yes.
And you could own a piece of the American dream, your piece of the American dream. I taught people how to do that. Yeah. And by the way, if you want to do it, I've got some houses that I can sell you. Mind you, we were selling houses for the first 5 years of my career, guys. I didn't do a house worth more than $100,000.
Yeah.
Well, I did a lot less than 50,000 retail. I was selling them for finishing up retail and making money.
Yeah.
So, having been in the business as long as I have, there's 2 segments of the real estate marketplace that are recession proof. The first time home buyer price point and the ultra wealthy. If you go back to the Roman era, those 2 segments of the real estate marketplace are relatively, I won't say completely, but relatively recession proof. So we did a bunch of houses less than $100,000 until I was ready. And then we jumped to 2.2 million. I didn't do anything in between.
That's quite a jump.
Well, not that I knew this adage that I just shared, recession proof is first time home buyer and the ultra well. I didn't know that, but it's proven to be true. It's the price points in between that I say they're a little more concerning. There's a lot more competition. So if you're dealing in the first time home buyer price point, and obviously that's more than $100,000, almost no matter where you're listening to this from, you will always have the wife who works as a school teacher, the husband who works at county sanitation. They have a steady job. As long as they got decent credit, those are the people that I would sell my first time home buyer houses to.
Yes.
And it's, let's say the first time home buyer price point now is $250,000 or $300,000, depending on where you live.
Yeah.
You can still own that, even with interest rates at around 7% for a 30-year fixed. You can own that for at least equal to what you put down in first, last, security. And think of the equity you're building. And in my book, Burst This, which was my second real estate book, Burst This, Frank McKinney's Bubble-Proof Real Estate Strategies. I went back and studied real estate cycles dating back to 1929, all the way up to 1970 when we had the recession with the oil embargo. We had an agent contagion in the 90s. From 29 to when that book came out, which was about 10 years ago, there were only 2 years that the rate of appreciation of real estate did not keep up with inflation. So you think about that. Like you have a run of 80 years or whatever it was, 90 years of real estate outpacing inflation. So it is yes, we got caught in 2010. I mean, that was one time where it wasn't proven true. Yeah. I'm in the early 70s, and it wasn't proven true. But for the most part, I'm not even speaking to the investor here. I'm speaking to the homeowner. Now, if you're in real estate, you want to provide. I never was a buy and hold person. I'm happy to talk about it. I know enough about it, but I'm a buy, add value, and sell person. Just because of the way I'm wired, I like project-specific endeavors. There's a start date, there's an end date, and then you move on to something new.
Yeah. Keeps it exciting, right?
Yeah, because, I always enjoyed, the artistry of creating and designing and marketing the houses. I will tell you that it doesn't matter if it's a $100,000 house or the most expensive one we do with a $50 million spec. There's still the drudgery of babysitting contractors. It never changes. I can tell you right now, it will not get any better. It probably won't get much worse. It's the first day of babysitting contractors.
Yeah.
But, that's just part of it. And we would manage that. But still, the intoxication with the design and the marketing and trying to make a new market, trying new architectural designs and styles.
Yeah.
Just like I've left Florida in North Carolina now, trying to make a market up there. Because we've already colonized the moon in South Florida. I want to colonize a new moon. And that's why we're up in North Carolina.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah. And if you do some really fantastic artwork, like I said earlier, on your houses, and the marketing is just as fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I that's when I first met you, Frank, is when you released Burst This. So that was the first book I got of yours that you had released it. I'm surprised it was 10 years ago already.
I mean, it was, so I've written 9 books in 7 different genres. And the only book I've written in the same genre twice is I got 2 real estate books. One that came out in like 2008 called Frank McKinney's Maverick Approach to Real Estate Success, how to go from a $50,000 fixer-upper to a $50 million mansion. And then the Burst This, Frank McKinney's Bubble-Proof Real Estate Strategies, which is exactly what it teaches you, how to bubble-proof your real estate investment. Because the naysayers are out there. The media's out there.
For sure.
Uncle Jim's out there who says it's a bad idea. Your best friend that you're doing this is going to tell you it's a bad idea because he doesn't have the guts to do it. How do you bubble-proof so you can prove them wrong and actually prove your bank account right? You bubble-proof no matter how you approach real estate, buy and hold, buy and sell, VRBO, Airbnb, storage units. How do you bubble-proof it? And that was what that book was all about.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we have a similar model where the flips that we do, and for the most part, we have stayed in that first-time home buyer pocket, and we'll continue to do so because we get extreme satisfaction out of giving a new homeowner basically an all new house that they don't hopefully have to worry about any repairs at all for at least a decade. And it's exciting to watch them sign and get to purchase the home. So it's definitely something that you should listen to this advice, that it's hard to go wrong if you're staying in that first time home buyer pocket.
Listen, if I lost everything, and I've rolled the dice on houses that would have, if it didn't work, I was eating out of a dumpster. Matter of fact, I didn't know if I was going to eat out of a dumpster or a Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Like, it was that touch and go.
It just depends. Yeah.
If I were forced out of a dumpster again, I would go right back to where I started because, like you said, there was those early years of my career where my wife and I were doing these $100,000 houses. I really cut my teeth on the craft. That's why I don't call it the business. You approach real estate as an artist would approach a palette, or go to an art store and buy paint supplies, buy a brush, buy a palette, buy the paint. You're not going to buy the cheapest. You're going to buy the best so you can deliver the best. You're not going to, I never looked at, like, a lot of real estate people look at a spreadsheet, which I know numbers extremely well, but it was never a bottom line driven business to me. It was always sacrifice your bottom line to build your reputation. And eventually your reputation will be such that people will line up around the block to buy what you're building. We went from doing hundreds of little houses to, we've done 40, I forget what the last count, 42, 44 houses on the oceanfront on speculation with the average selling price of $14.5 million. Now that sounds like a lot, but you divide that over 30 years, it's like a house and a half a year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quantity really. It was, and that's what kind of drove me to the high end. I was tired of doing like 20, 30 houses a year. I want to do one or two, do it really well. And then I believe that we had such a understanding of the subliminal decision-making process that the ultra-wealthy go through. Matter of fact, there's a whole chapter in Verse This about that, how they think. That was honed. It started, listen, guys, I used to sit every single one of my open houses when we were doing $100,000 houses.
Yeah.
Because, and I believe in listing, by the way. I mean, I've had 4 real estate brokers in the 30 years I was doing on the oceanfront. I don't like pop around. One died, one fired me, and I've had really two since then. I'm very loyal, but I would always sit the open houses, and it taught me how to read people. It taught me how to read what to sell and what not to sell. And it now, when we do a big oceanfront house, or now we'll be in North Carolina doing riverfront houses and mountain houses, that I'm at every showing, because if you have the ability, the buyer wants. If you could talk to Van Gogh, Renoir, Monet about instead of a painting salesman, wouldn't you want to talk to them?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
And if you've got the ability, use it. Tell your broker to include you. If you don't have the ability, get the ability, learn the ability. Because if you've got the passion for your product, that will come through. And if the guy asks you, what caused you to put a water floor in, Frank? Right? We had this glass water floor that was basically you walk on water. It was thicker than your drive-up Teller bulletproof glass if you were walking on with 18 inches of water beneath it. Where did that come from? Or we put this this hardwood, this reclaimed elm or oak, I forget what it was, out of a barn from Iowa that we bought the whole barn and, sanded the wood down and used that on the floors. These stories, no realtor, not to take anything away from realtors, they're not going to tell it with the way you do.
Right.
Oh no.
Tag teaming, like me and my realtor always tag team. Like we could speak, me and my one realtor I really love, we could speak without opening our mouths. You could tell when, like, okay, Frank, you go with the buyer, I'm going to go with the buyer's broker. Or Frank, you go with the buyer's broker, I'm going to go with the buyer. And here's where the proof is in the pudding. If you look up on the National Association of Realtors website or other websites that track days on market, how many days does a house stay on the market? And it says, from $100,000 to $200,000, it's X amount of days. They track all the way up to like $5 million. And the average days on market for a $5 million house, the last time we were doing this was about 9 months. Our average days on market was 54 and a half.
Wow.
So okay.
This isn't just theory. This is what I would put into practice.
Yeah.
I want you to walk in I would almost extrapolate this back to your first time home buyer designs and houses. I would want a buyer, let's say it's a couple, to walk in and say one of the following two things. What in the world was he thinking? And turn around and walk out. Or, this is the most amazing house I've ever seen. Because you're never going to sell a house quickly on that was kind of nice. Right. That was kind of nice, honey. You look at Annie and you drive it in the car, you see, that was kind of nice. You're not going to make progress. So when we would make this design decisions, I made them boldly, knowing that I'm either going to intoxicate your 5 senses to the state of subliminal euphoria, or I'm going to revolt you, and you're going to turn around the door and walk out.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And to water that down a little bit for the first time home buyer, there are rooms that you must take chances in if you want to differentiate your product. I contend it's the kitchen, the master bedroom, and the master bathroom. As you go up in price point, you want to create. So if I asked you to name the gender of the kitchen, the master bathroom, the master bedroom, 9 out of 10 people would say they are female in gender. You need one room like the man cave, like the den, like the study, where he can associate his masculinity with it. Because if it's a couple, you kind of need to,
That's a great tip.
And even if your house is too small to have a den or a study, I remember before we could afford a big screen TV, you could go online and buy a fake screen. It's like got a static image on it. They're like $35, and it's a 70-inch TV. It's like you stick that on the wall, make it look like screen, and then he can picture himself. Put a little couch there, or sofa, or something that's like brown leather that he can picture himself watching the football game in there.
Yeah,
those girls like that will start to countertop selection, colors of appliance selection.
Mhm.
As simple as, I mean, this is as simple as it can get. But if you're selling, let's say, a $200,000 house, chances are the person buying that has never owned a new appliance.
Yeah.
Leave the stickers on. You know, the energy stickers? Those,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
They'll know, man, this is my first new refrigerator I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, things like that. You know, it's just, that's how you set your, that's a risk. I mean, it's a minor risk, but you got to take
Still,
risks
yeah.
in the big rooms, in the money rooms.
No, those are fantastic tips, Frank. Especially, you know, having the little man cave too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you definitely have to accommodate your buyer, and you want to make it look. That's why we always stage our houses. Everybody's like, well, why do you spend the money on staging? And I'm like, because then they can picture themselves living there. They can see what fits in the room, and then also imagine their own furniture in there, or, you know, even have the furniture that you have as staging in there, depending on if they want to buy it.
Let me tell you how important staging a house is. By way of, all this is by way of example. It's not theory. The first house I did on the ocean was 32 years ago, 1992. And it was a stretch. Remember, I went from 100,000 to 2.2 million.
Yeah.
And I took all the money we had from selling the little houses. We sold our own house. We sold our car. We sold our clothes. We moved into an efficiency that was so small you could put the eggs from the shower. You know, like you could reach up to and the tiny little 400 square foot efficiency. And this house wasn't selling, guys. My wife's an interior designer. It was done nice, but it wasn't. This was way before furnishing or staging or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we went to one of her suppliers and made a deal to furnish it. We didn't borrow the furniture. Like we bought it on like consign. We bought it. We're going to pay when it's sold.
Yep.
And wouldn't you know that within 2 weeks of doing that, the house sold.
Yeah.
But it sold to a guy who took all our furniture. This house was a historic house built in the 30s. And so we did it like period.
That way. Yep.
He took everything out and put like black lacquer in there. The point is,
Wow.
by doing so, it allowed him to visualize how things could or should be, even though my taste wasn't his taste, without doing that. Because remember this, no matter what price point you're dealing in, people who are buying your house, be it a $200,000 house or a $20 million house, they made their money, or they make their money using their vision and foresight, doing what they do best. They don't do what you do best.
Right.
Even though when we were selling $20 million houses, these guys were, billionaires. They had more vision, foresight than I ever had in my wildest dreams. But setting up a house so they didn't have to imagine what it was to look like, took that part of the decision away. And that's why one of the reasons we were 54 and a half days, on the average days on market.
Yeah.
And why oftentimes, guys, somebody walk in the door on a Tuesday, like what they saw, and be sleeping there by Friday.
Yeah.
I had that happen more than I wouldn't say a dozen, almost 10 times. I would have somebody walk in the door on a Monday and be sleeping there before the next Monday, within a week.
Yeah, because they just paid cash.
Yeah. That's the other thing.
They got a good vibe from me. Like, they didn't do inspections. I often had no inspections. You can do them. But they're like, Frank, you're going to stand behind us, aren't you? Yes, sir, I'm going to stand behind this house. And of course, there was issues, and I will always cover it, even beyond the 1-year warranty that was like a law down here in Florida.
Yeah.
So yeah, but stay. And if you can't afford to fully furnish, and you can't afford to rent the furniture from a staging company, you can go to Walmart with a $500 budget and buy some silk plants, buy some place settings, buy some, some of the aroma scents that you basically can take, and you can drop a little drop on the light bulb. So when it's off, it doesn't give off a scent. But when you turn the light bulb on, it'll give off the scent of, Christmas cookies or brownies or whatever. You can do it with $500. You can stage a house.
Absolutely. I agree with
In
that.
fact, we have purchased the elevated air mattresses and prettied them up really nice, and no one even knows because, typically they're not going over to lay on the bed.
But you can soy.
It's funny you should say that, because in our first oceanfront houses, we couldn't either. So we would go to a thrift store, buy these really crappy beds that had like stained mattresses, and we would go buy an air mattress, blow it up, and it would look like a big pillow bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, you guys are getting all the secrets now to staging on a budget. So I hope you're taking a bunch of notes.
And one last thought as to, okay, so that makes sense. You know, you're going to stage a house, but why are you doing that? You're doing that because the psychological, emotional process that goes on inside the mind of a buyer is as follows. And we'll use the first-time home buyer price point because it's much more prevalent there than at the ultra. These people, they're thinking about buying Annie and Jay's house, or if you're new or want to get it, they're thinking about buying a house. They want to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out there looking at they're not going to just look at one. They're going to look at a bunch of houses. Right. You need to move the buyer from want to need. It's incumbent. You have to move the buyer from I want a house because I'm tired of paying rent to I need Annie and Jay's house. Right? How do you do that? And this is, I'll go real quick. It's in great deal in the Versus book. You need to touch their five senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste, to the state of subliminal euphoria, to they're almost intoxicated unconsciously with what they're experiencing in a relatively short period of time when they're going through your little $250,000 house. If you're able to do that, you move them from want to desire, from need to desire. It's like Annie going to the mall and walking down the center of the mall, and she's wanting a pair of shoes. She has shoes. Her shoes are fine. But when she walks by the shoe store and she sees those beautiful red stiletto, whatever she likes, you desire that. You don't need it, but you desire it. And it's because the merchandiser, the retailer's done a good job merchandising, marketing, setting that shoe up on a spotlight so it shines on it perfectly. The glass is clean. There's the smell coming. These are all the things that will move you from I want a new house to I desire Annie and Jay's.
That's
I love that.
That's a great tip.
I had a question for you, Frank, because I'm just curious to go from $100,000 on a flip project to then I'm going to do $2 million deal. Like, people may know, or maybe they don't, but I've gone from a little deal to a very large deal, and it was really scary. And like, so how did you decide to do that, and how did you overcome? Like, what did you tell yourself in your mind to overcome your fears?
Okay, so it's all about fear. And in my book, Aspire, How to Create Your Own Reality and Alter Your DNA, which is it's the only mindset book I've written. I've got real estate books. I've got young reader fantasy novels. I've got philosophy books. I've got a photography book. Aspire, How to Create Your Own Reality and Alter Your DNA. There's a chapter in there. There's actually a section that deals with risk-taking. 5 chapters that deal with risk-taking. And there's a chapter in there that talks about fear is a result of the thought of taking a risk. When you think about taking a risk is when the fear sets in. It's the onset of the thought of taking a risk, going from 100,000. By the way, I didn't pay 2.2. We paid 700-some-thousand. We fixed it up. So it was basically $1 million. We had a little over $1 million into it. So it times more than I've ever spent for any other house. So what I realized, and I realized this over my career, it's the thought of taking a risk that evokes the feeling of fear. And the thought of taking a risk, why are you taking a risk? You're taking on a big challenge, physical, financial, spiritual, relational, or a big change in life. It could be, a relational change. You will default to this saying that we've been taught since we were young. We fear the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what $1 million buyer, $2 million buyer, fear the, first of all, let's get this straight. You can't fear something you don't know. What you fear is leaving what you do know. You fear leaving the known. You cannot fear the unknown. You fear leaving the known. If you come to terms with that, you can't. If I had Tourette's and I'm standing there next to you guys in person, and all of a sudden you wouldn't know I punched you in the face, Jay, because I can't control myself. You wouldn't know that because I had Tourette's. We can't fear something we don't know. We fear leaving what we know. So
that's a good point.
It's so true. So what the
true
that I needed to exercise my risk tolerance, like my risk, like a muscle. Eventually, it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. So yes, I was afraid, but I will tell you, the very first chapter in my new book, Aspirational Thoughts, Inspirational Images. This is a book that combines photography with thoughts, quotes, and ideas. The image of the photograph helps you remember your favorite thoughts, quotes, and ideas.
Nice.
So like this thought, quote, and ideas, this thought, quote, or idea, you're going to remember this beautiful picture of the sun coming. This is all my photography coming through the tree. The very first quote in this book, very first page, is so powerful. So I'll read it to you, but there's the image of a fallen tree.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know how long, who knows how old that tree is. I took that in a field in North Carolina. If you're going to have regrets, which you will, regret what you did, not what you didn't do.
Ah,
I love that.
that's awesome.
Very first quote, because listen, don't sacrifice, don't think that don't live for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, we think that it'll be better tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
These are all things you got to condition your mind to taking a risk. Last analogy. Remember I said it's the thought of taking a risk. Once you take the risk, the fear goes away.
Yep.
Fear will go away. Remember the first time you got into a roller coaster. As a matter of fact, it started when you were in line.
Your heart. Yeah.
Then get in the car and that metal thing clanks down. Feeling claustrophobic.
So you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Let me out.
Then it starts going up the first hill. With the, when the chain pulls it up, you're about ready to pass out because blood's not getting to your head. But think about it. You're safe. Nothing's happened. You're in the car. The thing's down on you. It's the thought of what is about to happen that's making you afraid.
Yes.
It happens when we involuntarily take the risk because you're locked in there.
Yeah.
We throw our hands in the air. We back and forth. And when the ride's done, 8 out of 10 of us get to the back of the line and do it all over again. It's the same thing with taking a risk, guys. You will be fearful until you take it. And again, about the chapter on regrets, you're going to have them. I regret certain some of the things I've tried in real estate that didn't work out, but I'll never sit there in my rocking chair at 80 years old regretting that I didn't try it.
Yeah. I love that.
Perfect. That's a great way to end.
Oh, yeah. I was looking down because I just added your book to my Christmas list.
It's Audible. We're the first to do a photography book on Audible, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's impressive.
But this is it's a coffee table size book. You can see it's big. It's a great Christmas gift to give to people. And if you do the Audible, there's sound effects to it. And when you get to the last page of each chapter, if you're going through a chapter on action, let's say there's a chapter on action, on risk, on God, on love,
Nice.
single word chapters. If you're on the action chapter and you're at the end, there's a QR code on the very last page. That QR, and let's say you've gone, there's 15 images in that chapter. You're wondering, where was that image taken? What prompted Frank to take that picture? You scan the QR code, you're taken to 10 different videos in 10 different locations and 10 different outfits where I describe to you why, who, what, when, where, why when it comes to a handful of images that I know you had questions about. So it's a interactive book.
That is so
Awesome.
cool, man.
I love it.
I can't wait to, I hope someone gets that for me. If not, I'll buy it in January.
That's awesome.
But
Well-
yeah, that's fantastic, man. We really appreciate you coming on
Yeah,
today.
absolutely.
And we love you and love what you're doing for the world. And how can people get in touch with you, Frank?
I think the best thing to do is go to what PC Magazine called Disney on a Desktop. PC Mag now, it's not PC Magazine. Disney on a Desktop. It's Frank-McKinney.com. So put a dash between my first and last name. Frank-McKinney.com. And there you can tour the 31 villages that we built in Haiti. You can tour the mansions we built on the ocean. You can read sample chapters, listen to sample chapters on Audible for all the books before you even decide to buy them. Yeah, I mean, it's all there. You can spend hours on that website, and if you want to donate to Caring House, you can also do that. Where for $4.25, we can get a chicken in Haiti that is not to be eaten. It lays eggs for a couple of years before the chicken is eaten. So give up a latte for the day if you bought a chicken in Haiti.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so any amount helps, like any amount.
Yeah, I mean, you guys. Here's the wild thing. I know we're running out of time, but I just want to tell them what you guys did. So you donated. Was it one house?
Yeah, one house.
Oh wow. So Jay and Annie, they built a house in Haiti. They built a concrete house in Haiti for a family of 8 that was living in a mud shack covered with palm fronds for a roof, rodents the size of cats running across the dirt floor, gnawing at the kids' fingers and toes as they slept. They provided a house for that family of 8 for $4,800.
Yep.
Yeah.
$4,800 concrete house. Now it's tiny. It's not much bigger than the room I'm in here, like 400 or 500 square feet. But it's concrete, concrete foundation, concrete walls, rebar in the walls, metal roof, 2 rooms, and usually a latrine, which is a fancy word for an outhouse that's shared with 2 houses. All that for $4,800.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the cheapest house we ever bought, and our most prized house we ever bought.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that will be and it's new. It's brand new. It's not like you're buying a house that was burnt by.
Right.
In my early years, I bought a house for $1,200, but it was destroyed by fire, and I had to buy it from 6 siblings. It took me months to get them all together. So you're going to get the $200 each, but average $50,000 to fix it up. This is a brand new house for $4,800. There's 72 different donation options on the Caring House site, which is on frank-mckinney.com.
Okay, great.
That is
Thank
so
you for
awesome.
that. Yeah.
Thank you, Frank, and I can't wait to get your new book.
Yep.
And
Too.
thank you again for coming on and sharing all of your knowledge with our guests.
All right. Say, guys, go out there and do it. Remember, you're going to have regrets, so don't regret what you didn't do. Regret what you did. Go out and try.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
See you guys.
Hey, everybody, it's Jay.
This is Annie.
We are so grateful for you joining us on our podcast and listening in and participating. We want to offer you this additional free bonus, and that is joining our Facebook group.
Yes, where we will have other individuals, not just us, but having conversations on all things real estate, and we would love to have you join us. So just click the link below and head on over and join our group.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the other side.